to the Living Free podcast with myself. My name is Ahna, the one and only podcast that combines all things spirituality, faith, personal development, and relationships to show you how you too can live completely free. And this is my very first episode on my very first podcast that I've created ever. And the reason that I wanted to create this podcast and why I created it and named it Living Free is because that is what I want for every woman is to learn how to live free of your past, free of your pain, free of your limiting beliefs, free of societal expectations, and to encourage you to find the courage to live from your heart and be your authentic self and soften into your femininity and live your dream life. Because that has ultimately been the journey that I'm on. And I will not stop for anything less than my dream life. And I've learned how to overcome a lot of challenges and a lot of different things in my life. And I want to encourage other women to do the same and know that they don't have to settle and that they really can live out their dream life if they follow God's will and they follow their heart. And so, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ahna. I wear many hats. I'm a detox specialist, a quantum healer, a birth doula, and a few other things. But really, I just like to say, at my core, I'm a woman who really wanted to love herself again and really wanted to find joy again after years of depression that many people didn't see from the outside. And I've learned how to reclaim freedom in my body and my spirit by the grace of God. And I'm here to walk along you to help you do the same. And so in today's episode, I really want to share more about my vision for this podcast, why I created it to help other women. And I'll be sharing more about my personal spiritual journey, my personal health journey, and how I completely freed myself from a past history of PCOS, cycle irregularities, IBS, sexual trauma, and PTSD. And show you the steps that I have taken and that I am taking to live my dream life and soften into my femininity and show other women how to do the same. So, again, for those of you who have never heard of me before this podcast, my name is Ahna, and I am really passionate about helping other women free themselves. And what really inspired my healing was really quite a whole list of physical symptoms that forced me to figure out how to get to the root cause of them and how to get to the root cause of them naturally when Western medicine failed me. And for many years of my life, I struggled with PCOS, PMS, extremely painful ovarian cramping, chronic lower back pain, chronic stress, anxiety, depression, IBS, digestion issues, bloating, hair loss, a ton of hair loss up here, and many hormonal imbalances. And I also want to openly share that I really struggled with my sexuality for many, many years, having very low sex drive, the inability to feel pleasure or have an orgasm. And I share this because this has been a really taboo topic. And I don't think that we're talking about women's sexuality and libido and pleasure enough. And I really look at those things as a core vital sign for women's health. And many, many women I know are struggling silently with this. And so we can dive into that topic during a separate episode. But I want to bring more attention to that topic on my podcast in general, so that we are more open about it and we know how we can step more into pleasure as women because we were designed for pleasure. But back to my physical symptoms and just my health story. So as you know, as many young women are, I was put on birth control at 14 for severely painful periods, which was really just a band-aid for a lot of underlying emotional, suppressed emotions, just a lot of underlying emotional pain that was hidden beneath the surface. But at that time, of course, I didn't know any better. I was 14 and I was put on birth control for over a decade. And I even remember, like, I tried 7 different kinds of birth control because all of the other symptoms that it was giving me was making me feel like crazy. But again, I thought it was my only option. And I didn't want to go back to those painful periods. And so I stayed on birth control. And it wasn't until my mid 20s that I really had to figure out how to go deeper. Because when I went off of birth control at about the age of 25, things got really bad. Symptoms came back with a vengeance. And everything was flaring up. And my periods were super irregular. And when they would come, I would pass out from the pain. I had severe lower back pain that even chiropractors and acupuncture couldn't fully resolve. I was going to the chiropractor probably 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week. I had hormonal imbalances galore, the IBS. And what really topped it off for me was when I started to get severe dandruff, the top of my head, and my hair was falling out. Couldn't stop it. And when I started to lose my hair, that's when I got really serious about figuring out what was going on because I was like trying all the shampoos, I was seeing naturopaths, I was on thousands of dollars of supplements, and I was like, what is happening? Like, I can't stop this. And so, and then I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm being prescribed all these supplements. Is this going to help me indefinitely? Or am I going to have to be on supplements forever? Like something just like wasn't clicking. And as God does, God stepped in when I was really ready to heal. And that is when I learned about physical detoxification from a really close friend. And it's such a blessing because it completely transformed my life. And at first, I was super skeptical, and it actually took me months to say yes to a detox protocol because I knew nothing about detox. I didn't know how it could help me. No one had ever taught me about it in the past, and it's not something that's like commonly talked about, and maybe a little bit more now than it was like 6+ years ago. But my symptoms got so loud that I really had no other options. And I was like, okay, I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to say yes. And it was a 30-day protocol to cleanse my body of pesticides, start eliminating certain foods. And I went plant-based. And that is when everything changed for me, is when I started to really put myself on that like detox protocol. And I remember being 2 weeks into changing my diet and detoxing chemicals and parasites. And I was dropping so much inflammation. My face was literally changing shape. And I had so much inflammation I was losing that I didn't even know I needed to lose. Symptoms started improving almost immediately. And I knew things. And I really felt I was onto the right path. And I started to look better. I started to feel better. I started to feel lighter. And I was getting happier. And I recognize now that saying yes to physical detoxification was also my signal to God that I was really, really, really ready to heal. And 30 days turned into 60 days, which turned into 90 days of this new lifestyle, new eating habits, and it was completely transforming my health. So much that I decided to go back to school to learn about detox so that I could teach it to other women. And at that time, I was also working my corporate job in health benefits. But the world of detox and women's healing excited me so much that learning about it was like fun. It didn't even feel like work at all. And I simply couldn't get enough of the information. And I knew I was really heading on to like my life path um, at that moment in time. And I learned everything I know about detox from the Institute of Regenerative Health, which I am forever grateful for those learnings. And that's also where I learned the practice of iridology, which is the study of the iris, which is like a window. The eyes are really a window to the inside of the body where you can see genetic weaknesses. You can see glands and organs that need the most support. You can see the state of the nervous system. You can see so much through the eyes. You can see everything. And from there, I started, as I was still working my corporate job, I started seeing clients. I started reading the eyes of women and helping them along their own journeys. And eventually that led me to quitting my corporate job and starting my own business, seeing clients one-on-one at a holistic, local clinic. I was also teaching group classes. And what's interesting is that that is when the second phase of my healing journey began. And I share this because, so it's when I quit corporate is when the second phase of my healing journey really began. And I really had no idea what I was doing when I was trying to build a business. And I realized that I attributed almost all of my worth to the success I was having in my corporate job. And when I quit, I had a lot more free time. The voices in my head got really loud. And I started to see that I had many, many hidden wounds related to self-worth that were rising to the surface. And I recognized I had put all my worth into my job, into climbing the corporate ladder. And it was really eye-opening. It was really eye-opening. And that is when I say like the deeper part of my healing began. So it initially started with the physical detox, and then I started to really see a lot of the limiting beliefs and the things that I really thought about myself started to come to the surface when I quit that security. And I started to put some of the pieces together that, not only were my physical symptoms just physical to be changed with food and diet, but there was a lot of emotional things lingering beneath the surface, a lot of limiting beliefs. And I was asking for answers as to, okay, what are the next steps on my healing journey? Because I was really not doing so hot after I quit my corporate job. And it was at that point in time, I was actually called to psilocybin. And gosh, medicinal mushrooms have been so, so instrumental on my healing journey, by the way. And that's a topic for another time. But in short, I started to have, it was about a year and a half after detoxing that I started to have certain remembrances come back to me. And I realized that there was a lot of emotional pain that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And I had brief remembrances of sexual abuse from my childhood. And all of the puzzle pieces started to come together. And I remember there was a point when I felt God speaking to me, and I heard, you know, this is why you've had the PCOS. This is why you've had the lower back pain. This is why you get scared to speak. This is, all of the things. This is why you peed the bed. Like, I began to put the puzzle pieces together that we aren't sick and unhappy. All of us on earth, we aren't sick and unhappy because we eat the wrong way or we're not exercising enough. No, it's because we have emotions that our inner child has yet to process, and they show up as symptoms in the body. And it was a really, really eye-opening moment for me. And that was really the beginning of my spiritual awakening. And I just remember God showed me we don't have PCOS and IBS and chronic pain and hormonal imbalances just randomly. This is a result of suppressed emotions that just have to be processed. And so, for the past 2, 3 years, I've been learning how to move um, that energy out of my body through physical detox, through parasite cleansing, through breath work, through meditation, acupuncture, plant medicine, and qigong, and also something called the stellate ganglion block, which brought me all the way. And so I'll kind of dive into that a little bit later as well, because I know there's many women that are curious about that procedure, and I'm very convinced that this is a procedure that's going to completely change the game for everyone, and completely change the world, and really help people fully heal their bodies and have access to the things that maybe they don't have access to process at their current state. And through all of these modalities, I was able to heal my inner child and ultimately forgive. And through forgiveness and through love and compassion, after allowing myself and allowing little Ahna to process all of the emotions that were stuck, it's allowed me to come to a place of freedom. And what I've recognized is that the healing journey is ultimately the road back to loving yourself. And that road requires a lot of inner child work. All of us. All of us have a little one inside that needs to be heard, that needs to be validated. And you really begin to see the patterns that replay in your life, the lessons that replay in your life, and they really all lead back to your inner child. And so a lot of these modalities that I just talked about are what I plan to share more about on this podcast, so I can help other women free themselves of their pain as well. And I just remember, and I can even do an entire episode on this because I think it's warranted, but through a lot of the inner child healing, I mean, there were so many different ages that I needed to tend to, that I needed to mother little Ahna through, from 2 years old all the way to 14. And, it's really interesting because as you dive deeper into the layers of your healing and these ages of you, they come up, right? They rise to be healed. You are mothering that version of you. So there were certain nights I was watching the movie Frozen back to back to back to back all night because little 4-year-old Ahna was scared, and she needed to watch something fun. She needed something that was soothing, and needed weighted blankets and needed the light on all night. And there were times when 13-year-old Ahna came up and she was angry, and I needed to go to the rage room and throw glass bottles at the wall. And I needed to turn on Avril Lavigne and sing at the top of my lungs and dance and, thrash around and move anger energy out of my body. And there were just so many ages that came up to be healed. And I want to share more about that in future episodes because that really is true healing. Because there are parts of us that just need to be affirmed, just need to be validated, just need to be heard and listened to. And it's amazing when you can bring awareness to some of the feelings and unprocessed emotions and the wounds of the past, how you can literally heal years worth of stuff in real time and change limiting beliefs in real time right now that can transform and change your entire life. And yeah, I'm just so passionate about inner child healing, so I'll have to share more about that on future episodes. But that was really a very potent period of time that has gotten me to where I am now. And I wouldn't have been able to access those emotions, those feelings, those memories, those parts of myself without having done the stellate ganglion block, which was the anesthetic that was put into both sides of my ganglion nerve that allowed my brain just enough time to reset. And not only reset, but what I feel that it did for me was released everything that was trapped in my nervous system and allowed it into the body. And then I was detoxing. I was moving through these emotions. I was doing the inner child work. I was doing the breath work, and I'm so grateful. And along this journey of finding freedom in my body, in my mind, in my spirit, I've had to make a lot of hard decisions, which I think is one of the hardest parts about the healing journey. And that's another thing that I want to continue to speak about on this podcast, because oftentimes when you're following God's will, you're following the path of the soul. The soul wants to evolve. The soul wants to grow. The soul wants change, to develop. And that requires leaving comfort. And part of my journey included divorcing my childhood sweetheart of 15 years, separating myself from lifelong friendships, separating myself from family, moving to a different state, and following my heart, even when people didn't understand why I was doing it. And this journey of truly healing and becoming free requires you constantly becoming okay with being misunderstood. And those are all things I can talk about on future episodes. But what I just want to say is that to follow God's will for your life and to truly follow your heart and the path of the soul so you can reach your destiny and the life of your dreams, it sometimes doesn't make sense to anyone but you. And you have to learn how to be okay with that. And that has been one of my biggest life lessons, because I've always cared what people think of me. I've always fallen into people pleasing. And I think it can be very difficult for us women to follow the path of the heart. And, if people don't understand it, it can be really difficult. But to truly heal, you do have to have the courage to follow your heart, your intuition, to make the hard decisions, to do the hard things, to step out into, courage and bravery and the unknown when you can't see all the steps in front of you. And I believe that's why we call it faith. And wow, has my faith been tested throughout these years? It still is. But if you follow God's will for your life, He will always come through. And God has come through for me many times on this journey. We are here to learn. We're here to grow and evolve our character. And that is not the path of least resistance. And it's taken me a lot of inner work and self-discipline to get to where I am today. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because I have now faced every single one of my shadows, every single one of my childhood memories, every single dark part of myself that I'd been running from. And it's ultimately brought me closer to God. And it's deepened my love for myself. And it is a journey. I'm still working through things, as we all are. And I'm learning to love all the parts of myself that I deemed unworthy of love. But I'm getting there. And I'm here to share these lessons along the way. And that's ultimately why I wanted to create this podcast, because I spent a lot of years of my life in pain. And that's not how we're supposed to live. But every part of our journey is so purposeful. Every part of our past is purposeful. And I really, really firmly believe I chose all of this. I chose every part of my life so that I could learn the road back to love. And to see that we really are all the same. We really are all God's children. And my hope for this podcast is that it's inspiring. And what I've really realized is that trauma, it's a gift. Your challenges and the hard things that you went through in your life, they're actually gifts from God, because the lessons that you carry with you after you alchemize the pain of the past is really quite incredible. And that's really what it's all about. And, I think, like, after all, isn't the goal to become more like God, to have a heart more like God? And, when you face your own shadows, it's quite a humbling experience. And you really begin to realize that we all, every single one of us, need compassion, and we all need forgiveness. And we begin to see, and you really begin to see God in everyone you encounter. And you see God in the people that hurt you. And you just begin to see that, wow, what we're all searching for is love. What we're all searching for is God. Behind the addictions, behind the alcohol, behind the porn, behind the partying, the drugs, all of it, what we're really, really all seeking is more intimacy. We're seeking more love, and we're seeking God. And when I really reached my lowest points on this journey, I met God, and it's changed my life. And that's really, really what I want to help share in the coming episodes. And the other thing I want to say is we're here to have the human experience and to feel all our feelings, and forgiveness and compassion. Like, that stuff doesn't just happen overnight. And even though I totally wanted that to be the case many, many times, we have to heal the inner child and feel the emotions that we need to feel in order to come to that place of forgiveness and understanding. And in my work now, that is part of what I teach women how to do. So ultimately, my vision for this podcast is to share my own experiences with emotional healing, breath work, inner child work, nervous system healing, divorce, rewiring of limiting beliefs, plant medicines, relationships, nutrition, detox, and just, sharing more modalities so that you can also help free yourself, so you can create the life you've always dreamed of. And so you too can come to a place of forgiveness and love and compassion for yourself, and the experiences through your life that may be holding you back from your destiny. And ultimately, what I really learned throughout the course of my healing journey is that all the answers are within ourselves. And it's just inside of all of us. It's just that we have little children versions inside of us that are waiting to be heard, and waiting to be validated, and waiting to be loved back to life. And once those parts of you are integrated, the true woman in you can come forward. And I'm just excited to share more about all of that. And when we can move certain experiences out of our body through detox and breath work and acupuncture and all of the things on this podcast, we can transform. And so in future episodes, I plan to discuss and also bring on guests to talk more about parasite cleansing, nervous system healing, qigong, acupuncture, colonics, how to improve your intuition, how to become a more clear channel for God, how to listen to your body as a woman, right? How to understand your menstrual cycles. I'm going to be talking more about the stellate ganglion block actually in my next episode with the man who created the procedure and who actually performed it on me. I'm going to be talking more about sexual health and women's pleasure and why divorce is sometimes a part of the soul's path and why there doesn't need to be anything wrong in your relationship to know that it's just simply not right anymore. And there's nothing wrong with how to soften into your femininity. Why I went from vegan to a more animal-based diet and what that's done for my health, how to have thriving relationships, how to experience more intimacy and so much more. So there's so much more to come. I also wanted to do a quick plug. I've also just launched a course that I created. It's called The Art of Clean Living. And it is it's like an accumulation of all of the knowledge I've acquired on this healing journey, all of the detox knowledge about liver flushing and parasite cleansing and different purification tools physically, enemas, but then also energetically, and also how to live clean. So why should we care about the cookware, right? Why should we care about organic? Why should we care about what's in our shampoo? How is that affecting our endocrine system? How is that affecting our fertility? And so much more. And so I plan to come on and share more about that course as well. You can learn more and visit the site at artofcleanlivingcourse.com. And you'll actually be able to see all of the modules in there. But that is a course really designed especially for women that are trying to conceive and haven't successfully gotten pregnant yet. And also especially for women that plan to have children in the future. Now is the time to fully heal yourself so that you can go into your pregnancy from a healed state. So that you're not passing heavy metals onto your children, so that you're not passing ancestral wounds onto your children that they'll just have to face if you don't. There's this, the women that are thinking about getting pregnant, that are trying to get pregnant, this preconception health fertility realm is really so near and dear to my heart. And those are the women I'm really trying to reach. But granted, the course, I believe everyone in the world can benefit from. And the cool thing is it's go at your own pace. It's basically a portal full of resources for you to learn just how to be sovereign in your health, how to get your body into a clean state so that the body can do the healing that it knows how to do. And all of the things that I just talked about and how I got to where I am right now is in the course, designed to teach you how to do the same. And I offer 2 free mentorship calls every month forever with the purchase of the course, which is also super exciting. So artofcleanlivingcourse.com, if you're curious. I'm just so excited to share. This has been years worth of knowledge brought into one place, and I literally just launched it like a few days ago. And in some of the upcoming episodes, I'm going to dive deeper into the world of detox, probably the 3rd or 4th episode, right? Why we need to detox. And like I mentioned, the next episode is going to be with Dr. Lipov. We're going to talk about fertility and sexual health and reproductive health and just how the stellate ganglion block for nervous system healing can support all of those things. And again, I really believe it is the formula that is going to help women conceive. It's going to help them go all the way in their healing. Until I had that procedure, there were things I couldn't access, and it has completely transformed me within a 6-month time period after getting it. So lots more to come. Thank you so much for listening and supporting my podcast. I can also be found on Instagram at Ahna_regenerative birth, or you can visit also my personal website, regenerativebirth